motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. It was announced earlier today that unbeaten up-and-comer in the women's super bantamweight division, Mikiah Kreps, will be taking on former champion Mikiah Rivas
early next month on the 4th
in her native Niagara Falls at the Seneca Resort and Casino. Mikiah Kreps, a very talented fighter that's developing quietly in the background. She's not with a major promotional outfit per se, but whoever she's with is doing a very good job of keeping her active and keeping her busy. 28 years old to Mikiah Rivas, who's 36.
Both fighters are orthodox fighters.
Scheduled for 10 rounds in the women's super bantamweight division. Super bantamweight, that's where Ellie Scottney reigns as that division's only unified champion. That's where Mexico's Jamie Mercado holds the WBC and Argentina's Nazarena Romero holds the WBA.
Where this contest is taking place.
Mikiah sports a professional record, an unblemished record of 8 wins with no losses, no draws, 3 recorded knockouts. To Mikiah Rivas, the former champion that sports professional record of 17 wins with 5 losses, 3 draws, 11 knockouts, having never been knocked out
in 25 professional bouts, coming right off that loss to Erika Cruz.
Mexico's own former champion, Erika Cruz, that was stripped of the WBA title she won from Mikiah after she tested positive for a banned substance or banned substances in the Nazarena Romero fight. Coincidentally, Nazarena is now WBA champion.
And coincidentally, Mikiah Rivas drew with Nazarena Romero back when she was WBA champion.
It's been a tough run of fights for Mikiah Rivas when you consider that she drew with Nazarena Romero in June of last year, then she lost to Erika Cruz in November. Now about 11 months later, she's set to fight Mikiah Kreps. Mikiah Kreps, a versatile fighter, very skilled fighter that's developing quietly in the background without the backing of a major promoter. I've been paying attention to this young fighter for years, and I think she has all the makings of a future world champion, though she has to prove she's got what it takes. In order to be a champion, to make it there, she has to prove that she can make it past a former champion. Last in action in May of this year, opposite the ring, Melissa Odessa Parker, a formidable fighter in her own right. One of the names on Mikiah's resume that stands out, India Smith, Melissa Parker, then unbeaten Carmari Vargas of Puerto Rico.
These were solid names at the time that Mikiah fought them. These are the solid names on her resume so far, the resume of a developing fighter.
Now she's taken it up a notch. This is a big step up in class for her, as Mikiah Rivas is much more experienced as a professional than Mikiah, but she's also noticeably older and coming off a loss and a lengthy stint of inactivity, just 1 month shy of a year. Mikiah Rivas has always been a long and limber fighter for these weights, for 122 pounds, and she likes to move and punch.
Stay on her toes.
She's long and limber for the weight, whereas Mikiah is a bit shorter, stumpier, stockier, I think stronger. And I think she's going to have to spend the majority of this fight trying to get close to Mikiah Rivas, who's sure to get on the good foot, get on her bike, and move around. She's not going to stand in one spot.
Mikiah's got to pin her down.
Can she do it? That's the question, as this will be the best fighter, the very best and the most experienced fighter that young Mikiah has fought so far. I'd give the edge to Mikiah Kreps for a few reasons, because she's younger and she's fresher. She's been more active in the last 12 months, and she will have home field advantage. Young Mikiah hails from Niagara Falls, where this contest is taking place.
Home field advantage is a real thing.
In the event of close rounds where it's hard to separate the fighters to know who did what, the hometown fighter is sure to get maximum consideration. Not that Mikiah has to jerk Mikiah on the cards. It's entirely possible she wins the fight legitimately, but it's something to consider. Who's got home field advantage and who doesn't? Edge to Mikiah Kreps to perhaps win a points decision against Mikiah. Mikiah has never been stopped. I don't know that that's ever going to change. She's a tough old bird.
We'll talk more about the fight as the fight date approaches.
In men's welterweight news, Brian Norman Jr.'s manager, Adrian Clark, reacted to Eddie Hearn's matchroom being outbid by Karen Chukadzian's promoter in the purse bids for Ennis versus Chukadzian rematch.
Just a bunch of laughing emojis.
Seemingly laughing at Matchroom's misfortune that they got beat out by this unknown promoter, this P2M Promotions that represents Karen Chukadzian, meaning Jaron Ennis is either going to have to fight on another side of the street or he's going to have to give up his belt.
What's so funny about that?
Perhaps nothing to me and you, but to Adrian Clark, he's being petty. There's no other way to describe it. He's being petty because he harbors malice. He harbors ill will towards Eddie Hearn, towards Matchroom.
Why?
Because of how this entire ordeal made Adrian and his fighter look. It made them look like a bunch of bozos, a bunch of idiots.
I still think they look like a bunch of idiots.
When this is your reaction to Jaron Ennis potentially vacating his IBF title, you should understand that Jaron Ennis and Matchroom were the only people that were going to offer you that kind of money.
1.7 million. How many other offers do you have like that from the other champions at the weight? How many offers like that have you received from the PBC? They have 2 belts on their side of the street. What offers have they made you?
Was it anything to the tune of 1.7 million, or did they not even make you an offer at all? Because they don't need you, thus they're not going to overpay to get you.
Matchroom was willing to.
They were the only ones, as $1.7 million to your fighter would have been a career high purse. 17 times more money than he made in his last fight.
And Fidesz.
You're angry at Matchroom? You harbor ill will towards Matchroom? You must, if you find this at all funny, and you can.
Go ahead.
Jaron Ennis will never be undisputed at 147. Why won't Jaron Ennis ever be undisputed at 147? Because he signed with a guy in Eddie Hearn that's not willing to do business like he needs to do business to make the fights. No champion. He's looking to build this name in Philadelphia, Jaron Ennis, his backyard, and bring everybody else in for peanuts. Jaron Ennis got paid $3.3 million for his last fight against Avanesian, a guy that we was just picking at because we didn't know who the fuck he was. When he fought Terrence Crawford, now he got a name because Terrence Crawford knocked him out. He paid him $3.3 million for that. You want to bring a champion who's already doing his own thing. He already has his own flow. He already has everything going for him. You can't, none of the champions will come to Philadelphia and deal with that adversity for $1.0 million.
That's what I find funny. How Brian Norman Sr., seemingly triumphant, is gloating that Jaron Ennis will never be undisputed at 147.
Your son ain't gonna be undisputed at 147 either.
The Normans' rationale is that what Eddie Hearn offered them is not enough to make a unification match with any of the other champions at the weight, when I'm left wondering, what are you offering anyone?
What kind of money are you set to offer a Montestanionis or Mario Barrios? What are you prepared to offer them, and what are they prepared to offer you? Likely not as much as what Eddie Hearn offered you.
Because nobody's gonna pay through the nose to get a fight with you. You ain't got the juice. You ain't got that kind of drawing power. Whereas Jaron Ennis in Philadelphia, he can at least fill 14,000 asses in 14,000 seats, which is more than we can say for the lot of you.
Where in the country does Brian Norman draw 14,000 people to a fight? With David Avanesian or anyone else? Where?
You say that you have your own thing going, your own flow. And what flow is that? Fighting on Keyshawn Davis's undercard.
Is that what you'd rather be doing?
Perhaps, because underneath it all, the real reason I think Adrian Clark and Brian Norman Sr., the real reason they're celebrating is because they didn't want the pressure of having to unify with Jaron Ennis. Underneath it all, they didn't like his chances in that fight.
They didn't really want to do it. They were just talking, and when Eddie Hearn called their bluff and made them an offer, they balked. That made them look bad to a lot of people.
So when news breaks that Matchroom has lost the purse bid for Ennis versus Chukadzian, they're not going to hesitate to celebrate.
Because they're stupid.
Why it's stupid? Matchroom were the only people that were going to pay you that kind of dough. Stanionis ain't going to do it. Barrios ain't going to do it.
Nope.
You're not a 7-figure fighter. Toprank doesn't pay you that.
What, are you embarrassed because Matchroom made you look bad? You made yourselves look bad.
You think you're so smart, playing hardball, playing hard to get, when you're hard to want. And what is Top Rank gonna pay you for fighting on Keyshawn Davis's undercard? Nothing to the tune of $1.7 million, so who are you trying to kid? You say that Jaron Ennis will never be undisputed. That applies to your son.
That applies to him too.
The difference is, you don't want to be. It's not your intention to unify titles with Jaron Ennis. It may not be your intention to unify titles with anybody. You just want to sit pretty, squat on that belt,
Hold it hostage, and pray for a miracle.
don't think you're safe on your side of the street. Don't think that the people at Top Rank won't cash you out.
It's sink or swim time over there. It's always sink or swim time over there. And if you don't represent a great enough financial value to Top Rank, they're not going to hesitate to match you tough. So tough, you might lose that belt making less money than you would have made losing to Jaron Ennis.
So maybe it's not Derek Cuevas that gets to you. It could always be someone after that.
Oh, you split your sides. That Matchroom lost that purse bid. At some point, you're gonna lose that belt.
Because you're not that good, and when that happens, we'll see how funny you think that is. Boxing insider Rick Glaser caught wind of the news that Matchroom lost the purse bid for the Ennis vs. Chukadzian rematch, and he said this is pure comedy, especially after all Eddie Hearn said about Brian Norman Jr. Eddie lost sight of the endgame. Now it looks like Boots Ennis will have to go to the Ukraine to defend his IBF title or give it up and move to 154. In truth, Eddie's spread way too thin and only has a yes man around him, and this is what happens.
I think there's more going on there than meets the eye.
I also think that Rick Glaser has some kind of an axe to grind with Eddie Hearn, since he takes every opportunity to take shots at him. Perhaps it's because Rick does more business with Top Rank than Matchroom, or Golden Boy than Matchroom. He thinks he's in any position to wag his finger in Eddie Hearn's face about what he should do.
Somebody should really tell Rick that Matchroom is worth more than all the promotional companies he's always talking up, all the people he's always kissing up to at Top Rank, at Golden Boy.
Did you forget that Matchroom was valued as the most valuable promotional company worth the most money in all of boxing? That Rick Glaser thinks he's in any position to tell Eddie Hearn what he should do.
Did Rick Glaser forget that before everybody else started doing business with the Saudis, it was Matchroom doing shows in that region of the world for vast sums of cash?
As far back as 2019, while the Johnny-come-latelys of the world are just now arriving to that party.
And somebody should tell Rick that while he may think it's pure comedy that Matchroom lost the purse bid today, so did Top Rank.
Is it pure comedy when they lose a purse bid? Andre Mikhalilovich's promoter, No Limit Promotions, have reportedly won the purse bids for the Janibek Alamkanalai IBF mandatory rematch after outbidding Bob Arum's Top Rank by just $1,000. Fight is for Janibek's IBF and WBO middleweight world titles.
What do you think, Rick? Is that pure comedy?
Is Bob Arum, or Todd Duboff, Carl Moretti, are they spread too thin like Eddie Hearn is spread too thin? Do they have nothing but yes men around them? Like you said Eddie Hearn has yes men around them?
Did they lose sight of the end game like you said he lost sight of the end game? What are your thoughts, Rick?
I'm just calling a spade a spade. There are a lot of hypocrites in the sport of boxing, and Rick Glaser is just one among them.
Well, I know that Rick every so often has some good inside intel, but that doesn't change the fact that he likes to play sides.
Over to the purse bid. I think everybody's surprised that No Limit Promotions, who promotes Nikita Zoo and Tim Zoo, several other fighters in the land down under in Australia, beat a major promotional outfit like Top Rank for what is their unified middleweight champion.
Just as surprised as they were when they heard that this P2M Promotions beat out Matchroom.
P2M Promotions beat out Matchroom by an estimated $500,000. That was the difference between the bids, whereas here, the difference was a lot smaller.
Just $1,000.
No Limit Promotions' winning bid was $351,000, whereas Top Rank's bid was $350,000.
A difference of just $1,000.
It's a very small difference. It's almost like No Limit Promotions knew what Top Rank was going to bid, and they sprinkled a little bit more money on the top to ensure they won the bid. But how would that happen? How could that happen?
And why?
I've long maintained that some of these sanctioning bodies might be tipping off promoters at these purse bids for a price. The purse bids are supposed to be blind bids, between promoters. Participating promoters have to make a deposit. The deposit represents a percentage of their overall bid.
Pay attention.
One promoter is not supposed to know what the other promoter is going to bid. It's supposed to be a blind bid. They're not supposed to know, but you know who does know?
The IBF.
How do they know? Because all participating promoters are required to make a deposit that represents a percentage of the overall bid. So if you know what the deposit is, you know what the bid is, what it's going to be.
I believe the deposit is supposed to be 10% of the overall bid.
So when Top Rank makes a deposit of $35,000,
$35,000 is 10% of 350.
and should someone at the IBF crunch the numbers and auction off that information to a participating promoter for a price, that someone gets to make themselves a bit of cash for relaying that intel to a participating promoter, and that participating promoter gets a leg up on the competition.
In this instance, No Limit got a leg up on Top Rank. It's suspicious to me that the winning bid was just $1,000 more than what Top Rank put up.
This is supposed to be a blind bid, but a nominal difference like that, just $1,000, it's almost like you guys knew what they were going to bid.
You put up just enough to beat them. Just enough.
What else caught my attention? All that Top Rank was willing to put up for their unified middleweight champion was $350,000. $350,000.
Why is that important?
Janibek Alimkhanalai didn't all of a sudden become a middleweight champion. He's been a middleweight champion for some months. It feels like it's been a year now, and this is all they were willing to put up.
Okay.
So when we look back over at the welterweight division and newly crowned WBO welterweight champion Brian Norman, what do you think they're going to pay him to box on an undercard? All this talk about Eddie Hearn dropping the ball and what he should have offered that fighter.
You guys are suggesting that Matchroom should have busted their budget trying to get that guy in the ring. Top Rank don't bust their budget for that guy. They don't bust their budget for a unified middleweight champion. They're not going to bust their budget for some unknown welterweight champion.
Pay attention, because Janibek Alimkhanalai didn't all of a sudden become a middleweight champion. He's been a middleweight champion for some time now, and you don't see Top Rank busting their budget to get him unification matches.
And you think they're going to do that for Brian Norman?
This is an example of what I was talking about. Janibek Alimkhanalai's situation at middleweight and this purse bid. All they were willing to put up was $350,000. That is not an astronomical number, and there are 2 belts on the line. Whenever he fights with Brian, there's just one.
Perspective.
Now he's got to haul tail to Australia, where No Limit is based out of.
Andre's from New Zealand, but No Limit is based in Australia.
If and when they fight, that's where I think it's going to be.